Great. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Sammy. Cytomedix sells both the Autogel and Angel systems, and through the acquisition of Autogen, now has an autologous stem cell therapies for stroke and peripheral artery disease. Here to tell us the Cytomedix story is CEO Martin Rosendale.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. I'm really impressed with the crowd that we've got here. So I'll skip the disclaimer statement. Cytomedix is a broad-based regenerative medicine company. Our commercial headquarters is in Gaithersburg, Maryland. We have a state-of-the-art research and development facility now in Durham, North Carolina. We have 2 commercial products in the marketplace today and a robust pipeline of cell therapy drug candidates that we're developing. Looking at those products, the 2 commercial products that we have today, the Autologel system is the only product of its kind that has an indication from the FDA for wound care. The Angel system is another point-of-care device for the separation and concentration of platelets and bone marrow. And then in the pipeline, the Bright Cell technology that we acquired through the acquisition of Autogen, we have currently an ongoing phase 2 clinical study in ischemic stroke that we are funding. We have a phase 2 clinical study in peripheral arterial disease, specifically intermittent claudication, that's being funded by the NIH. And then recently we announced that Duke has an interest in treating patients with cognitive disorders following treatment for glioblastoma and have initiated a small phase 1 study that they're funding with the Bright Cell technology to treat those patients. Now, I could spend far more than my allotted time talking about all these technologies. So what I've chosen to do this afternoon is to focus on one specific of the commercial products that we have with a significant and near-term opportunity. The Autologel system is a point-of-care medical device that takes a small sample of the patient's blood and produces a platelet-derived or a platelet-enriched therapeutic for the treatment of chronic wounds. The business model here, there is a small piece of capital equipment, the centrifuge, and then there is a single-use disposable kit that is used for each patient application. So again, the device is used at the point of care, a small sample of blood is processed, and this biologic therapeutic is then produced. As I said, it's the only device of its kind that has an FDA clearance today for wound care. We have a robust body of clinical evidence supporting the use of this technology, and have recently been in a number of potential partner discussions, and as you may guess, many times those discussions reach the point where you need to forecast sales. And through that process, we've determined a conservative estimate of the peak sales opportunity, and our potential partners agree, about $500 million with this technology in the U.S. Now, the marketplace itself, if you were here this morning, you probably saw Ted's slides looking at the size of the wound care market. They don't agree precisely with the numbers that I have here, but in general, 6 million chronic wounds are being treated in the U.S. every year. Those include diabetic foot ulcers, pressure ulcers, venous ulcers, arterial ulcers, and more than $20 billion is being spent annually on the treatment of those wounds. Now, what everyone will agree to is that these numbers underrepresent what's actually happening in the wound care marketplace. Many of these wounds are not being captured in the statistics. In addition, the cost of managing a single full-thickness pressure ulcer has been shown to be about $70,000. And in my experience, one amazing woman that I've had the opportunity to meet that we were able to treat a couple of years ago, she shared with us, she had a pressure ulcer that we healed in about 3 weeks. She shared with us her Medicare records for the previous 3 years and showed us that with the expense of about $450,000 to Medicare, that wound had not healed. Now, that's one case example, but it's significant, and it shows the extreme expense that can be associated with these wounds. So again, just to emphasize, the Autologel system is the only PRP system of its kind that has an FDA clearance for wound care. We got that clearance in September of 2007. The formulation itself is patent protected. It's a special formulation. We actually enhance the platelet concentrate with pharmaceutical grade reagents. And the indication is very broad. It's for all exuding wounds. So the indication that we have from the FDA covers pressure ulcers, diabetic foot ulcers, venous ulcers, and all types of exuding wounds. So I said we have a robust body of clinical evidence, which I'll spend a little bit more time talking about in just a minute. But that significant and near-term opportunity that I was mentioning Again, if you were here this morning, you heard me talk about the fact that when this product was originally cleared by the FDA, it faced a significant hurdle in that we had a national non-coverage decision for all autologous blood products used in wound care that CMS would not cover it. Now, this is a marketplace that is over 60% Medicare beneficiaries. So without reimbursement, it's really a non-starter for a product like this. Now, we've been working diligently over the years to change that decision, and as you can imagine, once the government says no to something, it's difficult to change their mind and get them to say yes. But we have been working diligently, and in August of last year, we got a positive, favorable national coverage decision from CMS to cover the Autologel system, or to cover platelet-rich plasma for the treatment of chronic wounds. And that decision covers diabetic foot ulcers, pressure ulcers, and venous ulcers. So that decision also is very broad. Now, the effective date is August 2nd, which means any patients treated after August 2nd, the claims can be processed. But the implementation date is until July 1st, and so July 1st is when CMS will begin processing the first claims. That's when we'll have a better sense of exactly what the payment will be for these applications. This reverses a long-standing non-coverage decision. Now, this is a decision that they refer to as coverage with evidence development, which is a tool that CMS intends to use much more extensively going forward. And again, my colleagues here, it's a tool that I would recommend that you get familiar with, because I do believe that CMS is going to use it extensively. It's a pragmatic tool for the government. But basically what it means is the product is fully covered. Any Medicare beneficiary can have access to the Autologel system, as long as they agree to participate in a registry. Now, we had to put forth protocols for the collection of this evidence going forward. CMS has accepted those protocols. They're all registry-based. So it's something that we're very familiar with as a company. The evidence that we built to get CMS to this position also was all registry-based evidence. So we've submitted those protocols to CMS. They've agreed to them. So we now have 4 protocols in which patients can enroll and participate and have access to Autologel. Now, again, this is full coverage, and it's in order to get access for Medicare beneficiaries. The other benefit here, by the way, is this protocol, this study will establish a quality benchmark. It will also give us additional data going forward to strengthen our claims and enhance our promotion of the technology and the product. Now, in order to get that far with CMS, as I mentioned, we created a registry. And through that registry, we now have over 500 patients that we've treated. There have been 9 peer-reviewed publications that have come out of that registry, and so we do have a very strong, robust body of evidence supporting this technology. Just to give you a sense of some of that evidence, in the randomized controlled trial that was conducted in order to facilitate our FDA indication, this is a small RCT, 40 patients. These patients had diabetic foot ulcers of 7 square centimeters or smaller. We were able to show that we could heal 81% of these wounds compared to the control healing 42%. In this case, the control was a saline hydrogel, because both products being a gel, that allowed us to blind the study. And we were able to accomplish that healing rate in just 6 weeks, which is very significant. In addition, we have a Japanese partner, the Millennia Group, that operates a number of wound care clinics in Japan that has been using the Autologel system. And in this study, also registry-based, they have a very robust wound care registry of their own. And if you're squeamish, I apologize for the wound care photographs here, but they do show significant progress in those wounds. In this particular study, they were treating very severe diabetic foot ulcers, Wagner grade 3 or 4. These are serious, serious wounds. In this case, these wounds, the pre-treatment period was almost 100 days. In other words, the duration of these wounds prior to treatment. There was additionally a 75-day run-in period where the patients continued to be treated using the usual optimal care that they were receiving prior, in which the wounds were monitored. During that period of time, these wounds actually got bigger on average. And then there was the treatment with Autologel. These wounds began to rapidly heal, and by the end of the study, 83% of these wounds had healed completely, allowing the patient to avoid amputation. And then looking at a broader cross-section, if you will, of that registry data that we've developed, again, this covers a number of wound etiologies, diabetic foot ulcers, pressure ulcers, and so on. Looking at 256 wounds, the first 256 that were enrolled in our registry, we were able to demonstrate that wounds prior to Autologel treatment that had an average duration of 337 days, that very quickly upon the addition of Autologel to their treatment regimen, these wounds began to heal. And in fact, within 15 days and just 2 to 3 treatments of Autologel, these wounds on average healed more than 50%. So again, this is a very strong, robust body of evidence. This is the evidence that convinced CMS to change a 20-year non-coverage decision for these types of technologies in wound care. This is a significant opportunity for us going forward. And where we're at, we got the national coverage decision on August 2nd. That's the effective date. We are in the process of initiating the coverage with evidence development process now. As I said, we've got 4 protocols now that have been approved. These protocols cover all 3 wound etiologies: diabetic foot ulcers, pressure ulcers, and venous ulcers. The implementation date or claims processing will begin on July 1st. We expect to begin treating our first patients in the next 4 to 5 weeks. And we anticipate having the first analyzed results in diabetic foot ulcers sometime in the first half of 2014. And as I mentioned, we have a number of partnership discussions ongoing. This data, this decision has been significant and has actually brought a number of potential partners to us that are now interested in helping us with the distribution and promotion of the technology. Now, lest you forget that we're not just a wound care company with the Autologel product, we have a number of other milestones coming up with the Angel system, which is also a point-of-care whole blood and bone marrow separation system. We recently got FDA clearance and CE clearance to process bone marrow. That technology, it was issued in November of last year, so that's driving our growth with this product in 2013. We continue to see good, strong quarter-over-quarter and year-over-year growth with the Angel technology as we go forward. We expect to complete enrollment in the Phase 2 Recover Stroke trial with the Bright Cell technology that I mentioned earlier when I got up here. And top-line data from that study should be available sometime in the first half of next year. And then ALD 301, which is the peripheral arterial disease, or specifically the Phase 2 trial in intermittent claudication. We expect to begin enrollment in that study very soon now, sometime in the coming few weeks. And again, anticipate getting complete enrollment in that study sometime around the end of the year, with top-line data being released at the beginning of next year.
Excellent. Marty, thanks for that update, and thanks for the thorough details on the efficacy of the Autologel system. Just to make sure I understand this, so we're in a period now where you're running this claims evaluation study. The system is fully reimbursed. One of the things that came up and was recommended in the panel that we were on today was that there is some amount of money that goes to the physicians for actually processing this. And in this case, since it's really a system where they're actually taking out the blood, processing it, and using it, how does that whole system work? How much does the centrifuge cost? How much do the disposables cost? And is there a piece that goes to the physician?
Well, I can't answer you specifically because some of that's being worked out now. In fact, we have another meeting coming up with CMS on the 14th of May to get more advice or guidance from them, if you will. They recently issued their claims and coding guidance, which created a new G code, which is a temporary code that's meant to cover the service that will be provided. So that's the physician payment. And then what we're looking for now is the code that will cover the product payment. And so I don't have specific payment numbers for you. What I can tell you is that those codes will be coming, and they must be in place by the implementation date of July 1st.
Excellent. That's helpful. And then just one other quick question, if I may. You mentioned that your plans were ultimately to seek a partner. Do you have a sales force in place now today who's currently reaching out to place those systems and build a relationship with the docs?
We do. We have a small field force that includes a handful, three sales managers, as well as 3 clinical specialists in this area. The intent is to roll it out to get the CED process initiated and moving forward, to make sure that the protocols are working properly, to make sure that we've met the CMS requirements for standardization and usual and optimal care. And then at the same time, we have a number of ongoing discussions for potential supply and distribution partnerships.
Great. Excellent. Thanks very much, Marty, and we'll move on to the next speaker.